The first thing that Fran and I did was to take the 3 books of The Lord of the Rings and to break it down into what turned out to be a 90-page treatment.
I read that in the middle of '97 and immediately was stunned that they'd actually managed to. There it was, there was Lord of the Rings, essentially Lord of the Rings. So I became a believer.
We used to go around to Pete's house, which was great. And whoever was involved in the scenes, we'd go around and kind of chat through what that scene's about. And through that, a lot of the script kind of morphed into something else, you know?
There was a lot of plot lines that we sort of fleshed out, had ideas about certain specific characteristics more than anything. The idea of Frodo kind of playing with the ring and what would happen to him.
I can remember going out to dinner one night and Philippa and I sitting at the end just dreaming, and her asking for a napkin or a matchbook from the restaurant just to write it all down on, because it was, you know, beautiful stuff what we were coming up with.
The actors who were now starting to own their characters were, you know, firing ideas to us, which, you know, I mean, some of them are good and some of them aren't, but you certainly gratefully accept the good ideas. The design process was a lot of fun. I would simply go and walk around and talk to them and give them thoughts, and you just narrow things down.
The storyboarding process was the most basic form of pre-visualizing the film. It's 2D pencil drawings, single panels, nothing's moving, there's no real evidence of what the camera moves are going to be.
I mean, that is the single thing that I think storyboards are most valuable for me, is that they're a cheap pass at the movie. You know, I get to make the movie at a really, really low cost for the price of a few pencils and some paper. But it effectively has put me through the process of making the film. As a director, I've had a go. I've done version number 1, and I can get to look at the movie complete.
Which was a great tool. It was never intended and never was the final version of the movie. Peter uses it for inspiration, for communication with the departments, but you know that those storyboards are going to change. They're a starting point, not an end point for Peter.
Peter told us about it, and he was like, all right, I'll screen it for you before we start filming. And we all got to Pete's house, and he screened us this animatic, and it was a trip to read the script and talk about the script and get ready for the process of making the film, and then suddenly see a very rough compilation of those ideas put onto the screen. I mean, in some ways, we'd felt like we'd watched the film.
Beyond the storyboarding, we also did like another level of planning, which is sort of like bringing the storyboards to life in a variety of ways. And it's called pre-visualization, is what it's called, previs. I gave a little speech to the design crew very early on, where, and this is a little bit weird, but it was the only way I could really express myself. I said, look, we've been given the job of making The Lord of the Rings, but I want to, from this point on, I want to think that The Lord of the Rings is real, that it was actually history, that these events happened. And more than that, I want us to imagine that we've been lucky enough to be able to go on location and shoot our movie where the real events happened. Those characters did exist and they wore costumes, and I want the costumes to be totally accurate to what the real people wore. Hobbiton still exists. It's overgrown with weeds and it's been run down and neglected for the last 300 or 400 years, but we're going to go back in there and clean it up. We're the luckiest film crew in the world. We were able to shoot in the real locations that these real events actually took place in, and that was effectively my speech, to try to get everybody's head into what I actually sort of wanted.
I think Richard made over 45,000 different items for the film, including the miniatures and the prosthetics.
Over the length of 3 films, we produced over 10,000 facial appliances, over 1,800 bodysuits and foam latex.
The Aragorn costume, we workshopped that one so much with Vigo.
Nyla was wonderful in that she allowed me to be part of that process, you know, so that we could give the character and give Peter something first and foremost that visually appealed to him and felt right, but for me was comfortable.
We put a lot of detail into this because the idea is that for the character, for Vigo as an actor, as he puts on this costume, layer by layer, he is putting on that character. And that, to me, is a really essential part of being a costume designer, that you can aid a performer in becoming that character for a day.
Now, the journey of bringing a creature to the screen is quite an enjoyable one. Of course, it starts with the incredible amount of conceptual design. Then we roll on and do the three-dimensional maquettes, slowly honing the form and the character and the study of each creature.
After that, we would sculpt larger sculptures that you could really get into the details on and work them out. And often those sculptures were then scanned for the digital department to replicate in 3 dimensions if it was going to be a digital character, or they would be molded and turned into masks if it was going to be a prosthetic character.
It's just been phenomenal. His workshop is packed with stuff, and he has a huge team of people. They have really led the charge in creating the different cultures of the various races of Middle-earth and the look of the weapons and swords. And without that team of people, these films would never have gotten made. It's as simple as that.
Well, today, we're filming one of the seminal moments for Sam's character when I prepare to do Mortal Kombat with the Great Spider.
Use the light, the spider backs away, and then swing it a leg, just swing it, swipe at it.
Pete would describe what he wanted out of the scene, he would act it out.
You know, you will not touch him again as a challenge. And then you could almost use the fire, come on, let's finish it. You know, kind of make it kind of like an invitation to scrap.
Come on and finish it.
Cut.
All he wanted to capture was just that moment of that morning star about to crush her, and we had to just keep on shooting it until he got that moment. And this was continuously, and I was going, oh my, she's getting tired.
And action.
Okay, we'll just try one more.
Desperate Miranda, wait. Stuck at the last minute, Miranda.
That was great, Miranda. Let's just do one more and then we'll break for lunch.
I was actually just sitting there crying at one stage, and I didn't even know that I was crying. It was one of those things of being so kind of shell-shocked by the whole experience, that just sort of sitting there and then realising that I had tears running down my face.
Sorry, Miranda, we'll just do one. Actually, Richard, yes. Just flick on to 12 frames a second now. We'll do a 12 frame a second variation.
I was feeling really sorry for her, and I was going, cut, cut.
All right, great. That was a great day. Thank you. Just remember, pain is temporary, film is forever.
But it's all worth it. It's all worth it in the end.
The last shot was a pickup from Bag End when Frodo was finishing up writing his story of what he's experienced in Bilbo's book.
What is it?
It's been 4 years to the day since Weathertop, Sam. It's never really healed.
And one more, that's nice, Elijah. Just give us more of a sense that you're distancing yourself from Sam, that you've already made the decision, and that you've now got to cut your emotional ties with him. And at the end of each take, there'd be the silence, and it was like, is Peter going to say, we've got it, check the gate, or is Peter going to ask for another take? And I think all of us really just wanted to keep doing more and more takes. And cut. That's great, we'll check the gate. Good. Lovely last shot.
Thank you, Pete. Man, I'll never forget it. It's imprinted upon my memory for the rest of my life. Burst into tears, and he just said thank you over and over again.
I just can't believe it's over. It's just the weirdest feeling.
Well, I'm sort of in quite a strange place, I guess, because it's just over 24 hours to go till we finish shooting The Lord of the Rings after 14 months. And I guess at the moment my emotions are torn in all directions. You know, obviously in some way it's very sad because we're saying goodbye to a lot of people. A lot of actors are finishing up their roles, and it's been the end of a very long journey. On the other hand, I'm very happy and relieved because shooting a film, whatever size the film is always a tremendous strain. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of, you know, you just lose a lot of sleep at night. And after 14 months, it's certainly, I do feel like it's time to get over that and to have a bit of a break.
Good morning, everybody. George FM broadcasting from one of the most exciting days New Zealand movies has ever seen.
I think there was something like 145,000 people that turned out for this event, which, if you know Wellington, it was bursting at the seams.
The parade started from the Parliament building.
And off we went down the streets of Wellington.
And Air New Zealand flew overhead one of their Frodo planes.
It flew right over the city, like at a coordinated moment. You've never seen a jumbo jet fly over at that altitude. It's pretty awe-inspiring.
And the Oscar goes to Grant Major for Lord of the Rings.
I think we all were quite nervous as Steven Spielberg walked on the stage. There's no way to really describe what that feels like, you know, to be sitting in an audience at the Oscars, awaiting your fate or your film's fate for that final award.
And the Oscar goes to... It's a clean sweep. The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King.
They announced it and we all kind of jumped up and were hugging each other and, you know, completely excited. And then Peter said, well, you gotta come up here.
I wanted to be on that stage. I wanted it so bad. And when we walked up there, it just felt like, this is it. This is what it feels like to win the World Series. This is what it feels like to win the Super Bowl.
Oh, this is just unbelievable, and I'm so honored, touched, and relieved that the Academy and the members of the Academy that have supported us have seen past the trolls and the wizards and the hobbits and are recognizing fantasy this year.
When I did finally see the movie, I felt a big weight lift off me because I felt like, you know, through everything that we'd all been through, it was so worth it because what Peter did was so beautiful.
It's a magic project because it made everyone so passionate, but like when I walk away from it, it's not only the creation of the film, it's the people who created it is what is the experience that I love.
It was made with love, it was made with great care and commitment, and I do genuinely think that spirit has made its way onto the screen. And that in a way, to me, is what the real heart of the Fellowship of the Ring is. It goes beyond the heart of Tolkien's book and something of this incredible spirit that was used making it has made its way onto the finished film.